Hello, everyone. I'm Erik D'Souza, and you're joining us today for another episode of Crime Writers in Canada's podcast, where we discuss all things crime fiction from authors from coast to coast. Joining me today is Michelle Barry. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, fine, thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Your publisher insisted that I speak to you, and I'm sure I'm going to be happy to because I've read the beginning of both your books, and they're both
Wonderful.
very exciting. A little bit about you. Michelle Barry also writes as M.S. Barry, has been widely published in many Canadian literary magazines, national newspapers, and anthologies. She's the author of 9 books now of fiction. 2 novels have been published in the UK as well as Canada. Michelle is a reviewer for the Globe and Mail and teaches at the University of Toronto and Humber College. Michelle lives in Peterborough with her family. Um, as I was doing my research, I found that you wrote as Michelle Barry for a total of 7 novels and 3 collections of short fiction.
Yes.
You recently published 2 psychological thrillers. Why did you want to make this switch?
Why? It's a good question. Well, all of my books, the literary books that I've published before in all different presses, they all have something odd in them that's a little twist. And but they all stay on a tightrope. They're all down, like you don't fall off and kind of go crazy with those ideas. There's always just something that gets the reader curious of what's going on. And I've always wanted to sort of fall off the tightrope and see how it goes. And also, Robert Wears-Mira wrote a review of my last book in the Toronto Star, and he said, Michelle is writing thriller books. Like this is a thriller. Satellite Image was a thriller. And I thought, oh, finally, I've been acknowledged for what I'm doing. Um, and I thought, let me try it this way and let's see what happens, because then I can play with all those ideas.
Let's talk about both books and let's start with The Tenant. So, in The Tenant, we meet Amy Elias, a famous author who relocates to Germany with her family, hoping to find a cure for her writer's block. She finds that her rental home is accidentally double booked by a kindly but unexpected tenant, Eleanor. You make the interesting choice early on to tell your story from the POV of both of these women. Why did you choose to do that?
Oh, because I knew that as I was writing it, I got kind of bored of what one person was saying, but I had to wait for them to get through what they were doing. And I needed something to jump onto. And I needed both of them. You need to see their minds and see what they're thinking in order to understand how this is working in the plot. I couldn't just leave it with Amy for the whole book, or you would not see what Eleanor has done and why she's done what she's done. So I really needed 2 points of view, and I do that a lot with a lot of my writing.
Early on, when we're in Eleanor's head, there's a reference to Stephen King in
Yes.
um, that I thought perhaps it's a tip of the hat to him because there's a little bit of similarities between your story and Misery. Um,
Yes.
how how close are we getting?
Well, Eleanor is Amy's number one fan, and she moves in with Amy, and she ends up. I don't want to give anything away, but she ends up doing something to Amy that in the same way in Misery, it happens in Misery. So yes, it was a big nod to Misery. And I've reread that recently, and I love the book. It's brilliantly. It's written in the time period. You feel like you're back in the 70s or whenever he wrote it. So it's not very modern writing, but it works perfectly, and it's genius. It's genius. It's a really good book, and especially for a writer.
Um, I can't help but notice a little bit of similarities then between yourself and Amy Alice. Both writers, both writing under nom de plume. Do the similarities end there, or do you have more in common with her?
They don't even really start there because I wrote it before I was writing the MS Berry stuff. I wasn't sort of sure that we were going to take a pseudonym. I do not dress up and put a wig on and try to hide myself, although sometimes I wish I did. Um, so those kind of things, I was playing with the idea, and I'm not a very famous writer like Amy is. because I wanted to imagine what it would be like if you really hid yourself but came out as another character, another person. And some people only knew you as your writer voice. They didn't know you as a person. So that was fun to play with too, because I could play with her as just a human and play with her as a famous author, and trying to figure out, you can see both sides of her all the way through.
Well, you did own the local bookstore, so I'm sure your neighborhood, everybody knows who you are. Um, in this story, she's trying to escape writer's block. I don't know you well enough to know if you've ever experienced writer's block, but would you go as far as relocating your family to Europe to avoid it?
You know what I do when I have writer's block? I move furniture. So you know that I've got it, and I've got another idea in my head, and I'm ready to write when my husband comes home from work, and the kitchen is in the living room, and the living room is in the dining room, and I've moved everything around to sort of start again. But I had never had writer's block up until really during COVID, and during COVID, I couldn't get my brain to work with writing again. I just did a lot of reading, and I ran my bookstore out of my home and delivered to people. So, and now I do find I do have more writer's block, but once I get into it, if I tell myself that all you have to do is just start with a sentence and then follow that sentence and see what happens, then it works. So it's not really writer's block, but it's just getting me down to do that, to sit at my desk and do that.
Yeah, I think I read that you're a pantser and that you don't plot out too much. So
No,
I
not at all.
guess,
I plot out at about page 100. When I get to about page 100, I start saying what happens next. And then I have to go back and sort of plot everything out. And I'll do huge boards on the walls, and I'll do all the plotting techniques I've used. But not until I've hit that point where I don't know what's happening next. Before that, I kind of am just following the characters all the way through.
hmm, it's an interesting blend. Let's talk about the other book then. Behind the Door has a few common threads with the Tenant. Um, the first one being the obvious that your protagonist, Anna, relocates also to a small European town, this
Yeah.
one called Riverton in the UK, hoping to finish her PhD in folklore and fairy tales. I asked you about common threads between you and Amy, so how much of you is in Anna? She's just a younger version?
Well, my daughter is doing a PhD right now. And when she goes off and does her research for a PhD, she goes to these small places, and she could rent from Airbnb people. And so I always sort of imagined her, like, what would happen if you ended up at a place that was just a little off and a little creepy, being a single woman there. So Anna kind of is influenced by my daughter. She's not my daughter's doing art history, so she's not doing fairy tales. Um, and I also wanted to look at being in a strange house with a door that you're not supposed to go into, how to deal with that. And that was also, I know you're going to talk about Bluebeard, but that was influenced by the Bluebeard fairy tale. So I kind of made Anna then a person who is doing research on fairy tales, so to connect the whole thing. So she's living her research basically at this place.
I can't imagine what my sons would think if I said I'm writing a book and you're the inspiration to these
Oh,
characters.
I know. She throws her hands up in the air and says, "Oh no!" But she's nothing like Anna. She doesn't have any of the qualities. It's just the whole idea of going to a strange town and having to do your research and finish your PhD. And in fact, I didn't tell you, but the Tenant actually happened to me. I rented a place in Germany a long time ago with my 2-year-old daughter and my husband to spend the summer there, and we invited my parents along, and they went up to their little apartment because the house had a little apartment at the top. And they walked in, and there was another person in there renting the apartment too, that nobody told us that this would happen. And so they had to share a kitchen with her and the bathroom and everything. But it turned out she was lovely. She was absolutely lovely. She was a student, and she was going there to learn Italian. And her boyfriend worked at a Prosecco factory. So every weekend he'd come visit her with bottles of Prosecco that we would get. So it worked out well, but I kind of thought, what if that didn't work out well?
Oh,
There's the whole twist of that. So things have sections of, like, all my books have pieces of my life in weird, warped ways. So my daughter doesn't say that's her, but she kind of started it. She influenced me to start it.
um, but then In Bluebeard, or sorry, in your story, Behind the Door,
Yeah.
uh, I read it's a psychological twist on the Bluebeard tale.
Yes.
Anna studying folklore and fairy tales, so she's fully aware of this story. And
Yes.
so she knows she's sort of walking in that plot when she's told not to open that door.
Yep.
We all pretty sure she's going to open that door, but what were her chances of not opening the door? I mean, she should know better.
She kind of doesn't open the door, though. It is
Oh,
the person she meets who opens the door. She was following all the rules, but she knows that these rules are to keep people down, especially women. For in the past, they would keep women down by saying, obey me, and this was what you had to do with Bluebeard. And all his wives who didn't obey him were killed.
mhm.
And so Anna herself knows that she should not open the door, and she fights against it for the whole book. She will not open the door, and she imagines what's in there and justifies it and everything. But then someone else actually ends up opening it for her.
The poor girl does everything right.
I know,
So-
yeah, exactly. Except for
I, sh-
meeting this guy.
I should have maybe foreseen that because it's right at the beginning when we meet her. It says that she doesn't like to make decisions, and then she hopes that other people will make it for her. So I guess that's
Exactly.
what happens.
That's what happens.
There's a quirkiness to the story, but there's also a tension and an eeriness to it. We can go over several of the things that you do and some of the techniques, but I thought you did a really good job with the two cats, Ross and Gil. They
Thank
give
you.
us quirkiness, but they give us eeriness, and they, in a way, almost haunt Anna at night. So
Yeah.
tell us about the cats.
The cats are amazing. They weren't black cats, but we lived with my husband and I when we were students. We lived with a couple people who had Roz and Gil as pets, who were always sort of there and creeping around and things like that. Yeah, I love them, and I also have. You didn't get to Almira Gulch yet. The when before the bad witch in the Wizard of Oz turns into that she's the wicked witch. She is Almira Gulch riding her bicycle, and that is sort of Anna decides to give her that name in her head. So we've got that as well. We've got a bunch of fairy tale things sprinkled around, but black cats are the epitome of, they're always creepy. They climb in, they make noises in the night that you are scared of. So they fit perfectly in there. And also Roz and Gil are from, is it Hamlet that they're from? They're Rosencrantz and Guildenstern from Hamlet. That's their names. Who are the king has hired them to watch Hamlet and everything, and they're his friends. So it's this whole idea of, your friend turns on you for your father at a certain point, which he ends up killing them. So they were a lot of fun, and I always had them peering out windows, and she didn't even see them for the first half of the book. She doesn't even know they're there, and they also come out when they find the person they know. So all of a sudden they have appeared a lot. So Anna all of a sudden notices these cats. So they have a lot of things that they have to do in the book to keep them going. But they're fun. They were fun to write.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to continue reading just to see what happens to the cats.
Have I sold my book to you?
What part of your life then are you thinking about when you're thinking about writing your next book?
Oh, well, my next book, I don't really know where it's going right now. I'm about 200 pages in, which means that I'm probably only about 100 pages in because it's going to be edited like crazy. But it's all about that one thing in your life that you're doing, that you make one mistake, and it's a small little tiny thing that changes your entire life, and it can change it for the worst. And that one thing you look back on and you say, why did I say that thing in the middle of the night? Why did I look at a person that way? That will then, affect your whole life. And it's a family, and the one thing that they do accidentally screws up their whole life. So I'm working with a kind of, I don't know if you've ever read Doris Lessing's The Fifth Child. The fifth child, she has a perfectly happy life, this family. They have an amazing life with 4 children, a perfect life, everything's good. And then they say, well, everything's so good, let's have one more child. And that child becomes really bad and ruins their whole family's life. It's a short little book. It's a wonderful book. And so I'm kind of looking at that. And it's about hindsight when you look back on that and you say, why did I say that? But I'm sort of steadily working on it now. I'm not sure where it will go, and it might be a completely different book by the end. Who knows? Or it might never get published. So
Do you think it's going to be an MS Berry book or a Michelle Berry book?
I don't know at this point. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure I'll give it to my editor Sharon and see what she thinks, because she might say, well, make it a little bit more this or that, right? But it might be a Michelle Berry book, because it does work. It does look at dysfunctional families and strange things that happen in the family more than following a really fast plot at this point. But I might be able to make it a really fast plot. And it might seem really slow to me right now because I'm reading it for the 300th time. So it seems like a slow plot, but it might be fast plot.
That is
I
a
don't
very
know.
interesting writing technique you use.
Yes, I have a weird writing technique.
Well, I'm enjoying the finished product. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to talk to you.